Close enough. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. October 8th, 2021, of the Board of Regents meeting. Roll call, please.
Emmer? Here. Regent Ibrahim? Here. Regent Cradaville? Here. Regent Limbach? Here. Regent Clare? Yes. Regent Kinney?
Here.
Regent Ferris? Here. Regent Pillen? Here. Regent Schaefer? Here. Regent Stark?
Here.
Regent Whites? Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you. In your materials, you have a copy of the minutes of our meeting on August 13th, 2021. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval. Is there any addition? Second. Is there any additions or corrections? Roll call, please.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hemmer? Regent Kinney?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen? Yes. Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark? Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. In compliance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, the board has posted a copy of the act on the south wall of the boardroom behind the seating area for the press. I'm pleased to welcome Kathy Pettit, Assistant Vice Chancellor and Dean of Students at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, to share an update on the state of student mental health in 2021. Kathy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, on this gorgeous October morning. My name is Kathy Pettit, and it's my great privilege to be here representing mental health professionals across the NU system. This is an incredibly important topic, and I'm thankful for the next few minutes to share what we know right now about the state of mental health through the NU system. So just a brief history. In 2019, thanks to the Board of Regents, we collectively, the leads of the Mental Health Consortium here at the University of Nebraska system joined together. We quickly realized that we could together create efficiencies across the system, share best practices, and our mission is to have transformative, cutting-edge delivery of mental health services as a key component of the completion imperative. Oops. So we have some significant system wins. We have now a system-wide protocol, which is telebehavioral health. That means every student in the NU system has access to a licensed mental health professional 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is critical not only for student support, but it also helps with burnout of our mental health professionals. They no longer are on call on a rotating basis where they were before. So this is a huge win. We're incredibly grateful for that. We also have immediate access to mental health emergency funds at the discretion and direction of each campus. This is important, especially for universities like UNO, where many of the students don't carry insurance. And if their mental health needs are beyond the scope of what we can provide in our counseling center and they need a higher level of care, finances are often a burden. So to be able to assist these students in receiving their treatment is huge. We've also been able to partner with UNMC, UNO and UNMC for enhanced efficiencies, access to psychiatric support, which has been wonderful. And I think through the elevation of our work as a coalition, two of us were asked to serve on the governor's task force for the mental health crisis and emergency line, myself and Tiffany Hoff from UNK. So what do we know about collectively here in the NU system, but also nationally? Faculty are asking for help. This is actually a survey from Boston University, but you can see that The vast majority of professors are saying, look, I'm having lots of conversations with students about mental health, but I haven't had any training, and nearly 70% are saying they want to better understand how to help their students. I think all of us can agree that the vast majority of students who don't persist at the university, it's not because of their lack of academic ability. Life gets in the way, mental health gets in the way, and oftentimes it's our faculty who see this first. So why I highlight this is it's not only that mental health therapists are treating students in their centers, but we're asked to do a tremendous amount of outreach education for our faculty and staff. Serious concerns, even prior to COVID, regarding the alarming rise of suicidality across the nation. This is a survey that was conducted by the American College Health Association, which is our premier health association in the field. In 2020, 24% of the students had thought about suicide in the past year. That's concerning, but even more so, I'll call your attention to 19% of the students either planned or attempted suicide in their lifetime. Those are two factors we look at in terms of ranking risk and acuity. That's an alarming statistic right there. And again, that was pre-COVID. I love this graphic. If you can just take a moment to let it in. This was actually from a research article that was published at UNMC in their Vitals. And what I love about this is that a lot of attention has been focused with COVID on some of the brain effects, loss of taste and smell, at its most frightening, even brain stroke. But the reality is we're seeing some of the indirect effects that are far surpassing those medical effects that are really causing stress for our students and causing stress within the system. So depression, anxiety, brain fog, a lot of sleep deprivation, loneliness, which I'll talk a little bit more about as loneliness being accompanied with social anxiety. And then, of course, I've already talked about at its most frightening, suicidality. Bringing it home to Nebraska, suicide is the second leading cause of death, ages 10 through 34, 10th leading cause of death in Nebraska, and this one caused the coalition a pause, that on average one person died by suicide every 32 hours in our state. So we have important, sobering work ahead of us. And it's not just those of us who are mental health professionals, it's all of us. And that's really what this message is. I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but I do want to point out particularly the jump between summer 2020 and summer 2021, which is typically a slower time in the world of college counseling, but we've had a significant trend upward. Students are seeking support, which is fantastic. We also have a much lower no-show rate. Students are seeking help and they're following through with help. So recent trends, what are we seeing here within our system? Of course, we're seeing increased suicidal ideation accompanied by hospitalization. And that is no small fact because it is not easy to get hospitalized for psychiatric needs. And that's a whole different conversation. But the fact that our students are presenting with such a high acuity and risk is quite alarming. it's the chicken and the egg. Depression and anxiety have always been number one and number two, both here in the NU system as really well nationally. I can speak to UNO's trend that right now students are coming in and identifying anxiety as their number one reason they're coming in. I can't relax. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm flooded. I can't even make simple decisions. One of our challenges is they talk about loneliness, but it's accompanied by social anxiety. So I'm bored, I'm lonely, I want to reach out, I want to get involved, but the thought of going out and getting involved and being around a lot of people is overwhelming. Some of it's due to COVID, some of it is due to we have now a generation of students who lost their senior year in high school, who lost their junior year, who lost their freshman year. Some of those developmental milestones they spent in their bedroom on Zoom. And so we have a deficit in social skills that I think contributes to some of the poor decisions we're seeing on our campuses at times. The other thing, for lack of a better word, it's existential crisis. It isn't just COVID. It's what's happening around us. Global catastrophes caused man-made and nature-made. And there's a lot of students who are just saying, why bother? Really questioning the future. It also leads to maladaptive responses. Anytime you have a high rate of acuity and depression and anxiety, young people tend to look at quick fixes, and those quick fixes are often alcohol and drugs. So one of the things all of us have on our campuses are LADAC counselors, licensed alcohol and drug counselors. We offer substance abuse evaluations, court-ordered evaluations, and of course we see a significant amount of what we call co-occurring disorders, depression accompanied by substance abuse. And again, one could argue chicken and the egg, which comes first, but it's a complicated soup. All our campuses have robust Alcohol Anonymous, Narcotic Anonymous meetings, and at UNO, we have a very robust recovery community that is really intended to build a common safe space for students who are seeking recovery or are in recovery. And they actually have a suite for themselves in one of our residence halls that only they have access to provide a safe space with sober coaching. You can't mention all of this, especially a rise in alcohol and drug use, without also acknowledging the tremendous concern about sexual assault. And again, this could be a presentation in and of itself, but I want to focus on one thing. One of the most important things that we can do is educate ourselves and educate our students about resources and the differences in what those resources can do. So confidential advocates, they'll go to the police with you. They'll go to the courthouse with you. They'll talk you through the maze that often accompanies a young man or woman who is pressing charges. Counseling and psychological services, and of course, training and education for all of us is incredibly important, and it's also important that that training and education be trauma sensitive, so that all of us understand how trauma affects the brain, how trauma affects memory. And when someone is recalling facts from a particular situation, they're not going to be linear. Oftentimes there are gaps, and that does not mean that they aren't telling the truth. So that kind of education is incredibly important, and I'm proud of the university's efforts on that education. One of the other things that is critical to our success is finding out early and providing wraparound services quickly. All of our universities within this system have behavioral review teams, care teams, and we also have threat assessment teams when the risk rises to concern about the safety of our campuses. This is an illustration of UNO's behavioral review team. And what's critical is that students, faculty, staff, and community members know how to report. It is reporting in the best sense of the word. It is having a culture of when in doubt, report, when in doubt, consult. If your belly says something is off with a student in your classroom, let us know now. Real briefly, these teams were born out of the tragedy of Virginia Tech. And one of the things we learned was there was a lot of really useful information and no mechanism for all of that information to come together. So we have a sophisticated response. We use a software system called Maxient so that if a professor makes a report of concern about a student, that can be as innocuous as Janie has been stellar in her attendance. She hasn't been here the last week, and she won't respond to my emails. That's highly unusual. On the surface, that's a lot of college students, right? But I can tell you that exact scenario I just shared helped us interrupt a suicide attempt. That one report. So when in doubt, consult, and we can immediately see in our software system what we know about that student. Has someone else made a report of concern? So I share this just as an illustration of how sophisticated we can be in our response to student distress. I think the battery might have died. Can we forward it? Oh, there we go. Okay, national burnout for counselors. This is also a significant concern. There is, as I mentioned, increased chronicity of issues, hospitalizations. Truly, our students are coming in with significant mental health concerns. That's also a good thing because college is now accessible at a level that never was before. Medication works, treatment works, so they're bettering their lives through education, but they also need a higher level of care. That takes a lot of time. It takes a treatment team. It takes a lot of time in consultation. And what we're seeing with our mental health practitioners is that you have to be prepared for whatever comes in your door in higher education. It can be someone who is homicidal, suicidal, an eating disorder, a victim of sexual assault. That takes an emotional toll on our therapists. The reality is private practice, you can choose your own. You can choose your issues. You can specialize. You can prepare yourself mentally for what your day is going to be like. That isn't the case for therapists in higher education. So I think that contributes to burnout. And I will also say, frankly, that salary and benefits are a challenge for our therapists here within the system and nationally. So we need to take a hard look at that. There is good news. I sort of feel like this is a wah-wah-wah, but I want to highlight the good news as well. What are we doing that really makes a difference? Embedded counselors, intentionally put in residence halls in other areas, dedicated suicide educators, prevention initiatives, leveraging telehealth, and again, trauma-sensitive, trauma-informed care on campus is so critical. This is another graphic from that same research article, and I highlight it because here's the deal, folks. Making a difference with mental health doesn't have to come just from mental health providers. We all have a role to play. On UNO's campus, the College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media has a mental health committee, and they do programming just on wellness. We had Canines and KVNO. Multicultural Affairs has Music Mondays. That can't be undervalued in terms of wellness and what it does was, just having a climate that offers some relaxation as part of the everyday activities. So I challenge all of us to think how we can make a difference in the lives of the students that we serve. Some sample new initiatives real briefly. Really, frankly, thanks to Regent Cradaville, we have an opt-out counseling program for all pharmacy students in their second year. The second year was purposely chosen because they lost out on a quote-unquote normal first year, and second year is known to be sort of the crucible year for those students. So we're actually intentionally inviting them to counseling. Also, I want to highlight what I call Profiles Encourage, that UNMC is highlighting employees at the medical center and pharmacy school who have themselves struggled with addictions or mental health. Normalizing that is huge, and I really want to give a nod because that's wonderful. UNK does a lot, again, to destigmatize mental health. Their therapists go out and have what they call Let's Talk. So students don't have to go to the counseling center. They go to the students in the library, in common spaces, so that students get to see the faces of the therapists. At UNO, I'll say real quickly, every student who comes into the counseling center takes the Columbia, which is a suicide assessment. Depending on how they rate, they are put on a pathways program. So if someone is at high risk of suicide and they no-show, there's a pre-planned and agreed upon strategy that if that student doesn't respond to the therapist within an hour, we might call their parent. We might initiate a well check with one of our embedded case managers, and if necessary, with public safety. Again, all of this is to decrease suicidality on campus and to have a protective net. We also have ACE certified health coaches. These are folks who have full-time jobs at the university, but they've agreed to go through a curriculum to help them with wellness. And at UNL, they're doing yeoman's work in emphasizing transition back to pre-COVID routines. Routines are everything, and the more we can add back in normal routines, that's wonderful for our students. The other thing they're doing is really focusing on students with minority identities disproportionately impacted by COVID. So in wrapping up, one of the things that I want to emphasize is that we need to continue to train campus lay people as health and wellness coaches or just be health and wellness informed, challenging everyone to figure out their role in the mental health of our students, faculty, and staff. I think we have tremendous opportunity with digital platforms like Protocol and others to reduce wait times, increase some flexibility in services. I think that we are seeing such complex mental health needs for our students. It just doesn't stop with the treatment. Their depression might get better, but they're still behind on their rent. They're defaulting on a loan. They need case managers to work through that with them. And so having embedded case managers, I think, could help move the needle. Again, this is all about retention and persistence to graduation. Mental health equates to persistence to academic success. So this is incredibly important. And I think we need to look at creating sustainable funding models to address salary concerns, to address burnout and the turnover that we're seeing in our mental health providers. So I appreciate your time this morning, and I would welcome discussion or questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions?
Well, I think, I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Myself and my colleagues up here, every one of them, we are so engaged in trying to work with students to improve the the trajectory of their lives, right? So if we can, whatever we can do to help make their life better, but this on the front end is so incredibly important, because we can have the best programs, best education, et cetera, but if they've got issues with respect to mental health, in many cases it's for naught, right?
Right.
So what can be done on the front end? Because a lot of times when you have somebody who is suicidal, for example, or somebody who's experienced, this anxiety, what can be done on the front end to try to maybe curb that from the start, as opposed to, in many cases it may be too late.
Right, Regent Claire, I really appreciate that prevention and education, right? And I really see this also as a recruiting tool. My kids are grown, they're in their late 20s, but I know that when they went to college, one of my first and foremost questions is, what are you going to do when times get tough? Because they will. And so I think starting with that message right away when they apply to the University of Nebraska system, and that this is our commitment to your wellness and your mental health, and that we build in intentional prevention and education from the get-go. Faculty play a huge part. I was so pleased to present this week to a large group of UNO faculty on trauma-sensitive teaching, and the language that they use in their syllabus, the policies that they have in place. It does nothing to water down the integrity or the rigor of the course, but it does everything in the likelihood that a student will follow through with a referral.
Well, it's so important, and it's all around us. For any of us that were at the Northwestern game last week, when the Northwestern went like this, that was in recognition of the quarterback's brother for Northwestern, who took his own life at Washington State. So, I mean, this is a huge issue, and it's tremendously impactful. So, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, Assistant Vice Chancellor Pettit. One of the things that I've been taken aback by is your responsiveness to students over the last few months, particularly at UNMC and throughout the healthcare professions. There's historically been stigma about seeking mental health help as a healthcare provider. And what you've been doing and working with students and being responsive to students with ideas to work upstream, like the opt-out counseling model, has been a game changer, and it's been really empowering as a student leader to have you supporting us. So I just think it's worth recognizing how much work you and your team have been doing on UNMC and UNO's campus and throughout the university system. So thank you.
Thank you.
I had one quick question. I saw the work rate in the country is down another 2% to 61. I wondered, are we fully staffed, all the counseling positions?
No.
And how short are we?
Depends on the campus that we're talking about, but, and it's not tongue-in-cheek, we all need more help. And both in licensed mental health practitioners, but also social workers and case managers. There's a lot of work to be done. These students are bright, they're capable, and their mental health is getting in the way.
Thank you.
Kathy, quick question. Is there any funding underway for some of our, my biggest concern is we don't have enough teachers. In other words, the educational part of therapists and training, a lot of them have retired. Is there funding underway to fund more positions at the teaching level, like full professors?
I would have to defer to the chancellors on that. I can't speak to that with authority, but I can tell you that at least on UNO's campus, we are doing a lot with our teacher candidates to make sure that they are trauma sensitive. And combining resources. But there are a lot of movements underway in terms of trying to grow behavioral health educators in the state. And I think that's going to be necessary. but we also need to acknowledge the importance of education and mental health providers, not just through accolades, but also through compensation.
Angela?
Perhaps I can answer that question just a little bit. We've had in the medical school of UNMC a record class for the last several years of individuals that wanted to pursue a career in psychiatry. We have been able to retain as many as possible in our own psychiatry residency and fellowship training programs, but that represents less than half of those that wish to stay and pursue a career in psychiatry. And so we are working through Beacon and through some potentially legislation to be proposed in the upcoming unicameral cycle to expand mental health training in psychiatry. But the same thing is actually true in counseling and many other behavioral health specialties. As you know, Regent Stark, the interest in the young women and young men to pursue those careers is there. We just need to create the opportunities because the demand for them is currently, whether it's in higher education, whether it's in corrections, it's almost limitless right now.
Thank you. Good comment.
Regent Stark, the Senate President also has some experience with, there's a very large cooperative effort going on among our social work programs, which also is the outreach to so many people when there isn't mental health professionals. These people have really done a tremendous job, and there's a very good, I think, beginning swell among all the campuses, and those programs at all of our campuses, I think, are working together right now.
We need more resident slots. We need more faculty and expand the number in counseling, social work, et cetera, and that takes money.
So I also want to address the Regent's question is, in the world of constrained resources, I think I can speak for all the other counselor, that we actually pay intense attention to this issue. We already knew there was an issue before COVID-19, but the COVID-19 actually accelerated and articulated this issue. So in terms of deploying resources, we'll be very mindful. We'll put it as one of the top priorities. And I think second thing that Kathy mentioned is very important, right, is the campus experience side that we have to make up for right now after COVID-19. And I do agree that do not underestimate activities that we will be able to provide for a student if they're able to come back on campus and give them that, interaction is very important to resolve some of the concern that we have.
First, I want to thank you for that presentation. It was really eye-opening. I have two questions. First, what do you think the role of students is as student leaders in destigmatizing mental health and also supporting our peers who are going through mental health issues? And second, we kind of talked about specifically the mental health units on each campus. What do you think the role is of our chancellors and our vice chancellors and also supporting students?
What great questions, thank you. Student peer-on-peer conversations in educations is critical. On UNO's campus, we have both an Active Minds chapter and a NAMI chapter, and that's all about destigmatizing mental health, helping students have the courage to say, yeah, I'm in treatment for depression, or I've been hospitalized. No shame. My goal is that we talk about mental health the same way we talk about hay fever. And I tell students that all the time. So I think students play a critical part. The second part of your question, the role of chancellors, I would echo the same thing. Talk about it. Normalize it. Acknowledge it. Fund it.
Anyone else?
Sorry, one more follow-up. How efficient do you think is the opt-out program that they have at UNMC? Do you think it was efficient? Do you think that's do we have the capacity to adopt that at other universities?
Yeah, great question, to be determined. This is something that's actually starting this month, and it's one of our assessment projects, and we're going to be looking at it closely. Capacity is always the bugaboo, and because these are 15-minute check-in appointments to normalize counseling, but those check-in appointments also then are balanced with the students that are trying to get in for, therapeutic appointments. So we're being very strategic in how we schedule these. I'm very optimistic. I think it's going to make an enormous difference, but data will tell the story.
Thanks, Kathy, and thanks for everything you do for our students. At the beginning of each Board of Regents meeting, we take time to recognize those persons who all too often don't receive the recognition they deserve. The Board of Regents believes that it's vitally important that we acknowledge your commitment as well as your contributions to the university. To have been nominated by either a supervisor or a fellow work is an honor in itself. As Kudos recipients are announced, please come to the podium, join the regent making the presentation. Following the presentation, we'll take a photo which will appear on our website. President, Chancellor, and the recipient's family supporters are invited to join in this photo. Our first Kudos recipient is Kyle Means of the University of Nebraska, Kearney. The award will be presented by Regent Whites.
Good morning. It is my true honor to be presenting a kudos today. On behalf of the Board of Regents, it's my pleasure to introduce Kyle Means, who's taller than me. He's a tall one. His hometown is Lincoln, Nebraska, so he's at home right now. He holds a Bachelor of Journalism degree from UNL, a Master of Arts Education from UNK, Lopers, and since 2014, he has performed exceptionally as UNK's Director of Marketing. For his remarkable skills, work ethic, and attitude, and his tremendous contributions to the university community, Kyle Means is highly deserving of the Board of Regents Kudos Award. Kyle is thoughtful and energetic as a leader who manages nearly all the marketing and advertising and promotional items, especially undergraduate enrollment marketing for the Division of Enrollment Management and Marketing. He works with a talented team to enhance the perception of the UNK brand and its image. An example would be Be Blue, Be Gold, Be Bold. Oh, I like that. That's a marketing campaign right now. He oversees UNK's in-house print shop as well as creative team of graphic design, enrollment communication, and video production staff. Recent accomplishments include the enrollment results of his team's out-of-state marketing efforts this past year, their wide-reaching campaign for the newly created New Nebraskan Scholarship played an important role in increasing our out-of-state first-time freshman enrollment by 70%. Yes, 70%. Additionally, he assisted in creating a video production program known as Lopervision. I like that. To enhance live stream production of athletic events, he helped launch the marketing campaigns for Fraternity Sorority Life, Discovery Hall, Nebraska Promise, and Health Science Explorers. And he spearheaded multiple COVID-19 communications, started a UNK Roku channel, and launched the Loper Experience podcast. Finally, he is excited to be a co-chair of the First Generation Leadership Team. As a first-generation student himself, it is an effort near and dear to his heart. With Kyle today is his wife, Leslie. Come on up. And his parents, Roger and Janet Means. We're going to go take a picture. Oh, I should give this to him first.
Barb, you might want to get in the front. Barb, you might want to get in the front.
If they like, their choice.
Barb was funny.
Oh my gosh.
Congratulations, Kyle. Regent Ibrahim will present the Kudos Award to Aaron Murray from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
The Board of Regents is pleased to present a Kudos Awards to Aaron Murray, Research Business Service Specialist in the Office of Research and Economic Development and Program Coordinator for the Nebraska Center of Energy Science Research at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Very much a mouthful. Over the past 18 months, Aaron's job's responsibilities have expanded to include staffing and overseeing the nasopharyngeal and saliva COVID-19 testing sites at UNL. An operation that started in one small tent has since turned into a network of 14 testing sites spread across the 3 Lincoln campuses with the ability to provide valuable testing resources to our community of over 35,000 faculty, staff, and students. Aaron has hired and trained more than 200 students and temporary workers to staff the COVID-19 testing sites. She has mastered the art of scheduling around student worker schedules and classes without a delay in service. She leads by example, modeling the important qualities of professionalism and customer service, and instilling these core values in the dedicated workforce behind the COVID-19 testing operation. She embodies the Nebraska ideals of making sure that every person and every interaction matters. Aaron has worked with the remarkable crews in the university housing and facility management and planning to ensure the infrastructure at the testing sites was safe and comfortable for staff, and pivoted quickly to move testing sites indoors when the Nebraska weather turned bitter cold. Over the past 18 months, Aaron has worked nights, weekends, and holidays to ensure everyone at our university has access to COVID-19 testing and vaccine clinics. She has faced these challenges with a can-do attitude, a smile on her face, and a complete dedication to serving the faculty, staff, and students at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Joining Aaron today is Tyler Kofel and her parents Terry and Con Murray. Please thank me to Aaron for dedicating her service to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Had the right arrangement before. Everybody's not looking where you. Congratulations, Aaron. Regent Pillen will present the Kudos Award to Marlene Novotny from the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
It's an incredible privilege to present on behalf of the Board of Regents a Kudos Award to Marlene Novotny. any of us that have worked for a few years know that Marlene does whatever it takes to get the job done, and it doesn't matter when she may call. Most of us can only imagine how difficult it is to manage the schedule of Chancellor Gold. We all know that it's really easier than it looks, because Chancellor Gold sits around most of the day, right? Anyway, let alone 2 campuses and chairing the health system. Marlene has done incredible work for 5+ years. If you ask her how she juggles the impossible long list of meetings, phone calls, constituent contacts, and other requests of the Chancellor's time, she simply says with a smile, "It's quite a puzzle." It is indeed. Marlene deserves credit for making sure all the pieces come together so that the Chancellor's where he needs to be when he needs to be there. Marlene has earned an incredible reputation for her professionalism and her meticulous attention to detail. She never lets anything fall through. Has a deep understanding of the public nature of the roles and challenges of colleagues to uphold high standards of decorum when representing the Chancellor and UNMC. She exercises daily judgment in helping maximize the Chancellor's time while also making sure his calendar doesn't become overbooked. Said her nominator, Marlene is able to see the big picture, which is helpful in her ability to prioritize work in the Chancellor's office. Her operational style allows her to do the right thing to ensure things get done. A colleague noted she works tirelessly to ensure Dr. Gold and his support team operate with a high degree of precision to meet the daily demands of the office and the medical center. In addition, colleagues see Marlene as a problem solver who is unfazed by the many demands of her job. I think all of us that know Marlene would say she is positive, respectful, helpful, practical, trustworthy, reasonable, reliable, and dedicated to her responsibilities, and really down to earth. It's an incredible pleasure to work with Marlene. Today, joining Marlene is her husband, Tom, and her sister, Regine Wilden. Please join me in thanking
My son, Mark.
and her son, Mark. Thank you. Please join me in thanking Marlene for her incredible service supporting Chancellor Gold and the entire UNMC community. Congratulations.
Should all of us get in that picture? Because you've helped all of us.
Yeah, he wants to be in the picture.
Tim, you're short. So I'll point that out if you get up.
Congratulations, Marlene. Sammy Kaiser from the University of Nebraska, Omaha is our final recipient, and it will be presented by Regent Claire. Claire?
The Board of Regents is pleased to present a Kudos Award to Sammy Kaiser, Director of Academic and Career Development Center and the Senior Director of the Academic Advising for the University of Nebraska at Omaha, or is it the University of Nebraska at Omaha? Okay. Through her tireless work and efforts towards inclusivity, Sammy has gone above and beyond the responsibilities of her role, encouraged better communication, and taken on additional responsibility with enthusiasm. In her nomination, Sammy was described as someone who has worked to engage everyone she works with when creating UNO's advising ladder, which allows professional advisors to continue their career across different colleges. She led and organized a small committee focused on identifying the best practices for a promotion ladder and facilitated it. With her continued dedication, she has made UNO a leader among higher education institutions in this space. During the pandemic, Sammy also worked to bring continuity to student advising across UNO, a huge responsibility during normal conditions. With her ability to bring trust throughout the advising community, she has been able to create a more unified experience across the entire campus. Sammy created the Advising Lead Council, which connects advising leaders from different departments together to share information and solve problems and bridge initiatives from academic affairs and student successes with student-facing advisors. Sammy embodies inclusiveness. She has worked tirelessly to include everyone when it comes to decision-making. Sammy constantly supports others and works to foster spaces where leaders can feel safe in having difficult conversations to resolve and solve a variety of issues. Her nominator states, Sammy is a true maverick. She is strong, resilient, and leads with an optimism. She envisions a better future for everyone she encounters. Joining Sammy today is her husband, Steve, and her supervisor, Christine Camarano. Christina? Hey, that was a mouthful. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Sammy. As we close our time for recognition, I'd like to invite Chancellor Christensen to recognize and say a few words about our guests from Leadership UNK. Chancellor?
Thank you, Chairman Kinney. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you, and would you all stand up, please? This is the leadership group of our staff of UNK, Leadership UNK. They have a year-long program where they not only learn about the campus, but they also learn about the workings of the university. And so one of their highlights, believe it or not, is to come to see the Board of Regents. And so they are here today, and they'll do several other things while they're here, but I want to thank them. They've really increased the quality of staff. And you would think that in a small campus or smaller campus, you'd know everybody, but sometimes when you're on a roll, you just work in your area. And what this has done is expand, I think, the camaraderie and the collegiality of the entire campus. Very successful program, Leadership UNK.
Included in your meeting materials is a resolution Regents Schaefer and Claire have asked to introduce. Regent Schaefer would move that the Board of Regents adopt this resolution.
I move the University of Nebraska Board of Regents adopt the following resolution regarding the American Rescue Act Plan Act of 2021 as follows. Whereas the University of Nebraska was invited to testify before the Appropriations Committee regarding LR 178, an interim study to solicit input from Nebraskans regarding how funds from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 would be utilized, and whereas Nebraska will receive significant funding from the federal government to help Nebraska recover from the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, public health, education, state and local governments, individuals, and businesses, and whereas the ARP funds provide a unique opportunity for Nebraska to invest in initiatives that will grow the state's workforce, economic competitiveness, and quality of life. And whereas President Carter, still cracks me up when I hear I think of Jimmy Carter, I think turned 97 this past week.
Yeah.
Whereas President Carter and the chancellors have developed a set of proposals for ARP funding consideration aligned with the 5-year strategy emphasizing 4 areas critical to Nebraska's long-term vitality of 1, fulfilling critical rural healthcare workforce needs, 2, protecting the health and well-being of Nebraskans, 3, bolstering innovation and research in Nebraska's core industries, and 4, enhancing the talent retention here in this state. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Regents commends President Carter and the chancellors for thinking boldly about how the University of Nebraska can contribute to the state's recovery and future growth, and urges them to continue developing the ideas presented to the Appropriations Committee and pursue every funding opportunity available to advance the recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Regents extends its thanks to the Appropriations Committee for accepting input regarding the utilization of Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds and encourages their favorable consideration of the ideas presented by the University of Nebraska.
And I'll second that.
Rob, I'll let you lead off in the discussion.
I just think this is a great opportunity to continue to move the university forward to meet our needs. I think President Carter and the chancellors have done a wonderful job communicating, identifying what those needs are and how we can best implement them and weave them into not only the needs of the University of Nebraska, but to the state and the nation as a whole, and especially to our citizens and taxpayers and our students.
Any other comments? President Carter?
I'll be very brief. I am profoundly thankful that the Board of Regents have thought to bring this resolution forward as a show of support for our input to the legislature. As many of you know, I testified in front of the legislature with the support of all of our chancellors behind me this week. It was only a 3-minute testimony, but the details reside in the input that we made that was just turned into a resolution. We thought very carefully about what we could give back to the state of Nebraska that are things that only the University of Nebraska can do. Some of those items you even heard about here this morning with the challenges of mental health. There is no state in our nation that has truly solved how to get over the deficit of medical professionals and mental health professionals in rural America. The effort that we have put forward, one of the top items in there is to make an effort that, plus some of the other unique research capabilities that are highlighted in this resolution. So I'm very thankful to our regents for your support.
Yeah, I would add, I echo that, and I appreciate the resolution, the opportunity to be a co-sponsor of it. The monies that we're requesting, I think, not only, as Rob said, benefit the university, but more importantly, I think, fall in line with like Innovation Campus, Food, Fuel, and Water, with the ag programs that we have there, with UNMC West out in Kearney. I mean, these are things that are going to truly not only benefit us, but more importantly, benefit our state and make our state better. So again, our partnership role with the state is being enhanced through these programs, and I think these monies just are very consistent with what our goals are as a partnership.
Thank you, Regent. Anyone else?
I just would say that at the end, this is just a perfect example of how we can actually make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you, Regent. Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbaugh?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kinney?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now I'll turn it over to President Carter for some of his remarks.
Chairman Kenny, thank you. Good morning to everyone. As we are at this meeting here on October 8th, 2021, I'm reflecting on my arrival here in the state just about 2 years ago, where I was introduced as a priority candidate in October of 2019. And a lot of significant things have happened. This is not intended to be a review of that, but I do want to highlight some of the things that have happened recently. First of all, I think it's appropriate that we acknowledge the passing of Mr. Walter Scott. Certainly been a lot written about Mr. Scott, but at this public forum, there has been no better friend of the university, nobody more transformational to how the university has moved forward. We're still mourning his loss, and we're thinking of his family today. My remarks, although a bit short, will really just be a mid-semester check, if you will, on how we are doing as we're approaching fall break. There's a lot to be proud of here over the last 7 weeks and all that we have accomplished in moving forward, given that we are still in a global pandemic, and yet we are still doing our mission of the university. We are 100% in-person education across all of our campuses. Enrollment. Although we dropped slightly in overall enrollment, there is still a lot to be very proud of. We have the most diverse student body in University of Nebraska history. 21% of our student body in this fall enrollment self-identifies as being ethnically diverse. We are up in first-time freshmen. We're up in areas that are critical to our workforce, particularly in engineering, public health, and IT. As already been highlighted today, the new program out at UNK for the new Nebraskan program has been incredibly successful. Kudos to Chancellor Christensen and his entire team. Freshmen grew by 70% for out-of-state first-time freshmen. It's a remarkable number, and it's something that we're looking to apply across many of our other campuses. Let's remember, our goal is not only to attract more students here, but to make sure that once they arrive on campus, they have the support they need to graduate on time with as little debt as possible. Today, you're going to introduce another level of 4-year graduation guarantee. This is going to extend to transfer and returning students. We want to make sure that all of our students have the opportunity to graduate in 4 years or less. Open Nebraska, system-wide initiative to provide free or reduced cost course materials to students. This was launched in 2019 with the goal of saving students $10 million in textbook costs by 2023. This is a program that's quite honestly flown under the radar and has not been talked about enough. Frankly, we know how costly textbooks can be. This effort gives our students options like free digital cost materials or low-cost ebooks that create real savings. We just now got the numbers in that include savings from this fall semester. We are now at $7.7 million in savings for our students, well ahead of schedule. Not only that, but in the spring semester, we're going to pilot an effort to allow courses to be marked so students and parents can see at the time they are signing up for classes which offer lower cost options, providing even greater transparency and opportunities to save costs. There's no doubt in my mind that we will achieve and exceed the $10 million savings goal. I want to publicly thank Dr. Jackie Lindberg for her leadership on Open Nebraska effort and close collaboration with the student governments and faculty senates on all 4 campuses. This is a great success story for our students. Now, of course, it's not just about helping students who complete their degree at an affordable cost, but also about caring for their whole well-being, including their mental health. As you heard today in the presentation from Kathy Pettit, student mental health is an urgent issue here in Nebraska and across the nation. I want to give you my confirmation that we're doing everything we can to make sure our students have the support they need during their time at the university. Research. The pandemic has not slowed us down. We just cut a ribbon on a new ag biosecurity lab at UNL last week. It's an exciting collaboration bringing together our strength in agriculture and national security with our teammates at the National Strategic Research Institute. We're working on new efforts on collaboration and public and private partners to provide additional research support to our partners at U.S. Strategic Command. Efficiency and effectiveness. I'm pleased that we're putting our deferred maintenance plans into action. We're already making a dent in our $800 million in shortfalls for building sustainability. For example, in today's agenda alone, you have several projects before you, like the renovation of Calvin Ryan Library at UNK, which I know is an important project for Kearney. In fact, with today's actions, we will have over $100 million of LB 384 projects already underway. Now, a lot of times these don't sound like flashy projects, but remember, when we say we want to be the best place to teach and learn, safe and updated and quality facilities are a big part of that. Our faculty deserve teaching and lab spaces that reflect their amazing talents, and our students deserve excellent spaces for learning and working. These LB 384 dollars will go a long way in this regard. Vision. We want to become self-sufficient on deferred maintenance. This is a unique model nationally and a partnership with a state that I think Nebraskans can be proud of, and we are underway and making a lot of progress. So as we celebrate these achievements, we're also thinking big about the future. I'm really excited about the ideas that we just supported in the American Rescue Plan, the resolution for consideration. I want to give credit to our chancellors who came to the table with bold proposals to grow the economy and quality of life in our state for many years to come. We view these as solutions that the university is uniquely positioned to solve. This week's hearing was one step in the process, and we're looking forward to having a good conversation with our elected leaders about next steps. And finally, I just want to end my comments by saying thank you to the chancellors, our leadership teams, our faculty, our students for continuing to push forward, even when times have been challenging. When I look around the country, it's clear we're one of the universities that has stayed focused on the future. And because of that, we are in a special position to advance our priorities and make an even greater impact on our students, our state, our economy, and workforce. There's lots more to come. So now I'll turn it back over to Chairman Kenny.
Thank you, President Carter. The standing rules of the board provide that any person or persons may appear and address the Board of Regents on an item that is not on the agenda if the individual provides the corporate secretary within 24 hours notice. We have been contacted by 17 individuals who wish to speak on topics that are not on the agenda. When your name is called, please come to the podium and identify yourself. To hear from as many speakers as possible, we have 2 minutes to address the board. And we'll begin with Nicole Hutchins.
Hi, my name's Nicole Hutchings. I am a student at UNO. I am a veteran, a mother, a wife of a military active duty personnel at Offutt Air Force Base. I have a lot that I do, and I go to a lot of board meetings. This is the first here, but I've been to BPS, I've been to the state school board meetings, so there's a lot to unpack here. The main reason I'm here is the mask mandate. It's very clear that this was a bait and switch on all the students that were going to the university. The semester started, and not even 48 hours into the semester, the optional status was pulled for a mandate for all indoor spaces. That's not even enough time for somebody to have contracted COVID-19 and show symptoms at that time. What I'd also like to talk about is that the mental health the mental health presentation that was just shown. I find that it's interesting that people don't understand that these mandates, this fear-mongering, has been the reason for a lot of this mental health crisis.
1 minute.
And on top of that, we've had more people die of suicide and opiate overdose, drug overdose, than we have of COVID-19 during this pandemic. Nobody talks about that. I've known two people that I know personally that took their lives during this pandemic. They've left behind wives, children. They left behind a whole life because they were taken in to this mental health crisis by the isolation and all these mandates that caused them this depression, that led them to commit suicide. I've also seen these vaccines pushed because mask mandates have worked. Why not a vaccine mandate? And now, one of my friend's nephews is in the ICU for myocarditis because he got a vaccine. He's 15 years old. The rest of his life is now altered because he felt forced and coerced into a vaccine that has not been proven to have effectiveness for his age group.
2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Larry Bradley.
Okay, I originally thought maybe 5 minutes, but now I'm being told 2.
You got 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Dr. Larry Bradley, Larrybradley, 6068 Country Club, Oaks Place, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm here to inform you about UNO using unfair labor practices against disabled American veterans. UNO using language from LB 639 passed in 2017 to strip away any hiring preference for disabled American veterans. I happen to be a disabled American veteran. I appealed to the Nebraska Department of Labor. I have no wants, warrants, or priors. I applied for 30, 40 positions over 20 years at UNO and never get advanced or promoted, so it was a head scratcher as to why. I've talked with different state senators who co-sponsored LB 639, and they informed me that was not the intent of the bill. And a few of them were combat veterans of note. UNO uses LB 639 to not allow upward mobility and say I was an employer, though I only teach a lousy 0.24 FTE. UNO only provides a contract on a semester-by-semester basis. They consider me an interim employee during the summer when I'm not receiving any pay or assignments. They will quietly discriminate against me as a person of color, Chicano, half Chicano, Latino, and they'll quietly suppress my academic freedom using language from LB 639. And my research has been highlighted on PBS nationally. And I've been breaking barriers, and museums and universities around the world have been inviting me to talk. This is all getting bigger. Finally, I want to say I've been a commander at a local veterans post in Omaha for 8 years. I've counseled and visited veterans with suicide issues. I've given away vehicles to mothers who were veterans and needed to drive their kids to school. I've helped raise thousands of dollars of scholarships to college students and of veterans to attend UNO, UNL, UNMC. I've visited veterans in prisons. I've visited veterans in homeless camps along the banks of the Missouri River. I've visited vets in VA hospitals. I've even been honor guard at veterans' funerals. I request every one of you to help me get those state senators to close those loopholes of LB 639. And this preliminary maybe be in January. Please don't have Big Red Lobby go and counter my efforts. We have to close these loopholes. And as a commander at a vet's post, I've seen how employers like UNO use these sneaky ways to get around from hiring or promoting or advancing veterans and disabled American veterans. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Larry. Lee Todd.
2 minutes isn't a lot of time. I will limit my comments then to simply the vaccine mandate. I think this is a vile thing that has happened here at the university. Let's talk a little bit about gain of function. Dr. Fauci, who promotes gain of function. What does gain of function mean? It means when you take a virus, let's find a way we can make it more deadly. Let's find a way we can use it to kill people more readily, more aptly, more efficiently. Sounds a little bit like the Nazis. Sounds a little bit about like Gestapos. And you think this can't happen in Nebraska. If you have any idea if vaccines are really working, or maybe you should be a little bit suspect, look at the Israeli data. Look at the Barrington Declaration of 10,000 people, medical officials from some of the distinct universities in the world, Oxford, Harvard, and Stanford, which say maybe, we're not all looking at this the right way. Maybe vaccines don't work. And you don't think this can happen in the United States? In 1932 to 1972, blacks were experimented on with syphilis in the infamous, Tuskegee experiments.
1 minute.
Gain of function, really? And we're relying on data and data points from a medical advisor who's politically compromised, Dr. Fauci. In 1932, 1972, syphilis. In 1965 to 1966, Agent Orange trials were experimented on black people, primarily black men. It can't happen in the United States. Heck, it's happening here in the University of Nebraska. Radiation experiments on black men in the 1970s that had cancer. Let's see what happens with radiation. I think what is happening here in this bait and switch is exactly what it is, and the university really needs to look at the policies that it is implemented. We've got students who are willing to stand up and criticize the political discussions that are taking place, and rightfully so. And what we're doing here today is saying, no, you can't do that. We're going to demonize you, we're going to dehumanitize you, and make you feel inferior to the rest of them, because we're going to do what? Run you through different protocols that we're not running the other people through. And yet here are independent thinkers who are realizing maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be.
2 minutes, thank you.
This is vile. This is like lipstick on a pig. And holding up all of these things that you get if you sign up to get the vaccination card. That is the lipstick on the pig. The pig is even insulted for doing this.
Thank you for your comments.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Lee. Jeffrey Friesen.
Friend Mike Zeleny asked if I was going to go full Ross Perot. The answer is yes. So who am I? Why am I here? Jeff Friesen, Associate Professor of Finance at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, a parent of 2 UNL students. And I do think it's important to point out that UNL does not at present have a vaccine mandate. And I'm here to urge you to keep it that way. President Carter, I am extremely grateful that we're open. I'm extremely grateful for my children. I'm extremely grateful to be in class, in person. We've done it, we're doing it successfully, and we're doing it successfully without a vaccine mandate. So I see 2 fundamental reasons to continue that and reject any future calls for a mandate. The first is vaccines are unnecessary for COVID-19, for COVID-recovered individuals. The document I provided to you, the graph here, has a figure from a Cleveland Clinic study showing future COVID-19 reinfection rates. The yellow is unvaccinated individuals, no prior infection. The green is unvaccinated individuals, prior COVID infection. The orange are vaccinated individuals with and without prior COVID infection. The only way to justify a COVID-19 vaccine mandate that ignores natural immunity, I'm not talking about a 90-day window, truly ignores it, is to argue that the green is closer to the yellow than it is to the orange. We need to look ahead and reason back, because if we can mandate one treatment for one group today and there's no scientific justification, it establishes a precedent that in the future will allow us to mandate anything for any group if there's no scientific justification. The second reason is clinical trial data. There are clear benefits in the clinical trial data. There are clear risks. I've provided a summary of that I vetted with my colleague at the University of Maryland, Dr. Peter Doshi, Associate Editor of the British Medical Journal. I've also provided you the full Stage 3 clinical trial data for the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Whatever you decide in the future, whatever you say, after today, you can say that you held the full clinical trial data in your hands and you saw with your own eyes all of the very real benefits and all of the very real documented risks. Table S. So let me close. I'm a credentialed actuary. I'm a financial economist for 20 years. I live in the world of risks and benefits. In August, Regent Claire, you said, the university or a board of regents cannot trust the judgment of its faculty. That university has very serious problems. That argument was made against the CRT proposal, but it makes an equally strong argument against any vaccine mandate requirements. I urge the Board of Regents to reject what will inevitably become increasing pressure to mandate these vaccines without any exemptions for natural immunity and without any honest recognition for the very real benefits, but also the very real and documented risks in the clinical trial data that you hold. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Kathleen Cowles.
Pass out. My name is Kathleen Kauth, and I'm a resident of Omaha. I would like to officially protest the fact that you have reduced it to 2 minutes. All of the communication we have had, including the sign-in sheet over there, indicated we would have 5 minutes to speak, and many of us spent a lot of time writing up information, doing research to present, and practiced for 5 minutes. So pardon me if I am a little bit vague, but you have all of my comments. My statement is that the use of a vaccine passport system violates our inalienable rights that are secured by the Constitution. Nebraska has a vaccine passport system. It's not called vaccine passport. It's called safer communities. I find that an Orwellian term. We're not providing safety with vaccine passports. If you provide your vaccination status to the voluntary vaccination registration program, and there was a lot of hype over this in the summer, they got great prizes for doing so, which to me is a lot of bribery, then you automatically always have a cleared status on your app that you have to show. Every single student, faculty, and staff who walks into a public space in this university has to prove their medical worth to get into that public space. There are wellness advocates stationed at each door, checking to see, are you healthy, are you not? Now, if you've gotten a vaccine registration and participate in that program, you are automatically considered healthy no matter what. However, it's proven that even with vaccinations, you can get sick and you can pass it on. It does not make anyone safer. Kathy Pettit did a great job on the conversation about mental health. Self-determination and the feeling of being in control of your own existence and your own life is critical to one's mental health. This vaccine passport system that you have installed, making you justify yourself anytime you want to get to a class, undermines that self-determination. You're hurting the mental health of your students. Now, these kids have worked so hard their entire life. My son is a junior here. He's not here because he says, Mom, I'm in the ROTC program. I can't make a stink. I have to get to my classes. I can't protest this because if I don't get out, I'm in trouble. These kids have worked their entire lives to get to college, to do well, to have a career. And now all of a sudden they're being told, well, you have to follow certain rules. You have to do this. You are teaching them compliance to authority when college should be the time when you teach them to critically think about the issues.
Thank you.
I'm going to finish with, if it does not make you safer, why are you doing it? I'm also going to add that I have invited, and I'm with a group of concerned citizens and conservative groups from across the state. We have invited Dr. Peter McCullough, Stephen Petty, who's an industrial hygienist, who will tell you that the masks you're wearing are doing nothing, and 2 attorneys from the Thomas More Society for a conversation about candid issue or COVID issues. It'll be on campus next week on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Jeannie Greason.
I also have handouts out in case if some of you didn't read it. And I also want to protest the 5 minutes. I have a story to tell, and I prepared all my story to tell to meet 5 minutes, and all the correspondence was for 5 minutes also. So I'm going to ad-lib and tell you my story. So I'm Jeannie Greason, and I'm here as a pharmacist and as a mother. I've been practicing pharmacy for the last 21 years in 5 states. And that my whole career has spans the creation and the mitigation of the opioid epidemic. My whole career. The opioid epidemic is actually, District Judge Dan Polster called it, quote, a man-made plague 20 years in the making. You might ask why I'm talking about the opioid epidemic. A pandemic is an epidemic, and they have everything to do with one another. So the reason I bring it up is Purdue Pharma, back in 1999, came out with OxyContin. OxyContin was going to be the best new drug that came out to help people with pain. It was touted as no addictive properties. You could go to high doses. It was safe, long-term studies. It was good. This was the best thing that ever happened to anyone. So why would we not believe that? The science was there. However, my education at the University of Nebraska Medical Center had always said opioids are addictive, and over time you develop tolerance, which leads to addiction. But the FDA told me it was good. The CDC, they said it was good. The World Health Organization, they said it was good. Why would I question the science? So then I'm practicing pharmacy, and I see patients coming in script after script after script. And then I see them coming in for higher doses in a short amount of time. And then I see it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. In California, I was practicing in 2007. The epidemic and the diversion got so bad, Patients were coming to me on a daily basis, begging me to fill their prescriptions early. And I couldn't do it. And I saw the desperation in their faces. I couldn't do it because legally I couldn't do it. They were hooked on this stuff. So now, Purdue Pharma is they're paying $3.5 billion and $2 billion for criminal forfeiture. Purdue Pharma, the World Health Organization, is known for misleading and doing false claims. The CDC, they were manipulated by the Purdue sales team. I was manipulated and lied to, and so were you. So what does this have to do with this pandemic? Everything. You are believing and setting your policies based on the same agencies that allowed this opioid crisis epidemic to happen. 840,000 people have died since 1999. And that was legal. How is that okay? And you're relying on these same agencies. So I'm going to give you a quote. I was a pawn. Are you guys going to be a pawn? The Sacklers have been called drug dealers in nice suits and dresses. And if you have a political agenda, you are no different. Stop preying on these kids. They are not here for an experiment. They are not here to be preyed upon. They are kids, and their health is the responsibility of their parents and themselves, not the University of Nebraska. If you don't think what could happen with the opioid epidemic is happening now, then you are blind. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Corbin Hubble.
Hello, my name is Corbin Hubble. I represent hundreds, if not thousands, of students who have passed through this university who are having their voices suppressed, specifically around COVID-19 and the response to the pandemic. I just want to say that the Safer Communities app and these vaccine passports is essentially what it is. I think it is a disservice and a disgrace to what's going on to our students and what's happening in this university, having them disclose their medical privacy to a university to have them gain access into a building on campus, which is a public institution. These mandates seem to be never ending. The most recent mask mandate was just extended, which is no shock to anyone who has been paying attention in this room. I want to talk a little bit about mental health as well with COVID-19. Depression, drug use, and self-harm have all gone up ever since this pandemic began. Is that because of COVID-19? Of course not. It's because of the response to COVID-19 and the policies and restrictions that were put in place by people on this board and people in this local government and the state government and federal government. We wonder why these students are committing suicide at unprecedented rates. We wonder why these students are using drugs at unprecedented rates, getting involved with alcohol, going to anywhere that they can find to get their sense of belonging or their sense of, I guess, gratitude or pleasure. Well, I can offer a solution. How about we go back to just having face-to-face conversations where I can actually read the expression on the person that I'm talking to. Having people go to these psychiatrists or therapists and having to talk to someone with a mask over their face does no good to anyone. And I think it's a fool's game to pretend like it is. Normalcy will never return through compliance with tyranny in the name of medical well-being or the greater good as it goes. I want to make sure that I also invite everyone to our event happening this Wednesday, October 13th, from 3 to 5 p.m. All of you in front of me have gotten an invitation there in your mailboxes, and I would like to see you there. If you are not there, then I understand that you do not want to actually understand the science and where the other side is coming from, and you just want to continue with your narrative. Thank you so much. I hope that you understand and recognize that this is the voice of hundreds and if not thousands of students at your university, and I hope you take what I say into consideration moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Corbin. Sean Truckee.
Good morning. I would also like to protest the 2-minute rule. It just shows the contempt that you have for the citizens of this state when all the communication is 5 minutes. While mandatory vaccination is not yet official policy at UNL, there certainly is a health passport system in use. But in order to keep things simple today, there's just one main question I would want anyone, to answer. Why at UNL, the area hospitals, and elsewhere where COVID testing regimes have been implemented, are we only testing the unvaccinated? Now, I understand why no one will answer this question honestly, as it would destroy the prevailing COVID narrative of safe and effective mandatory vaccines for every single person. But it is now established fact that the vaccinated contract and spread COVID just like the unvaccinated. By now, we all know this to be true. All the data shows us this is true. The CDC director and Dr. Fauci have unequivocally stated this is true recently. I know of both professors and students, all vaccinated, that were homesick with COVID, but still could have a green status in the SAFER app. This policy, if the claim is to want to provide a safer campus, is indefensible. The hypocrisy is stunning and indicates that the entire policy is just a political sham. It is blatant and unscientific medical discrimination. At this point, knowing that the vaccines do not prevent infection or transmission of the virus, it is no longer about public health, but rather personal risk mitigation, a choice for each person to assess themselves. The constant message that the vaccinated need to be protected from the unvaccinated is pure insanity. The COVID shots may be the only medical product in history where the lack of efficacy is blamed on those who have never used it. And I also just want to say that the presentation on mental health was excellent. And Regent Claire, you asked the question, what can be done on the front end of this? Give people their lives back. Give people their lives back and stop harassing them. As a society, we have to do that. As a university. Kids are hopeless because they look at what's going on. And what kind of a world would they want to live in? What kind of world is there for them when they look at what's happening? They're being controlled and manipulated everywhere. And it starts here, it starts in our city, our county, our state. We have to give people their life back. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Madison Whitney. So must not be here. Wayne Smith.
Good morning. My name is Wayne Smith, and I'm from Lincoln. I'm opposed to the Safer Communities app. It will introduce unwanted pressure and incentivize young people to get vaccinated, which can cause serious side effects. Many students getting the vaccine may not realize the risks involved, many of which have been deliberately suppressed from the public. According to the former director of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, the CDC's voluntary VAERS system is clearly not functional. Or, according to whistleblowers, they are deliberately not posting information. Whistleblowers' signed affidavits exist, indicating that over 45,000 vaccine-related deaths are reported in one of the databases. It's not the 12,000 deaths that the public can see. There are over 200 studies on hydroxychloroquine and over 60 studies on ivermectin's effectiveness in treating COVID-19 and keeping people out of the hospital. Let's educate students to ask probing questions before taking COVID vaccines, such as what therapeutics are available to begin in early stages of COVID to prevent severe reactions such as cytokine storm, severe inflammation, blood clots, irreversible lung damage, and death. How can I improve my immune system with vitamins B, C, D, and zinc? What are the risks to women of childbearing age, including placenta inflammation, inability to implant a fertilized egg, or miscarriage? What are the risks of dying from COVID for people my age? I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Wayne. Tina Lasik.
Hope I crossed out enough of my 5-minute speech. I'm going to talk fast. I'm here to speak out against the use of the Safer Community app or any form of a health pass. I'm strongly opposed to medical apartheid. Discrimination against any class of people is always wrong. No school should require constantly updated proof of health metrics from a basically healthy population. Students acquiesce to the loss of health freedom and bodily autonomy because they're being told it's for the greater good. The CDC Safety Council admits there's an association between the shots and myocarditis, pericarditis, and heart attacks for those under the age of 30, which is your population for the most part. Everyone will be required to get boosters ad infinitum to keep their passes valid, which we see happening in Israel. The intent of a health pass is to make life very uncomfortable for those who choose not to get the shots. They will be second-class citizens, and that's what I object to the most. Statistically, minorities are much less likely to get the shots, and paying for testing will disproportionately affect lower-income students. The Safer Community app will be violating HIPAA at every door all day long and ignoring the Nuremberg Code. That could open you up to a lawsuit, and I sure hope that doesn't happen. The students in your system are adults capable of making sound health decisions for themselves, and they must be free to do so without coercion and punitive measures. Your decision on the app has the ability to affect freedom for all future generations, and I don't know if you even realize how far-reaching it is. I implore that you look at the bigger picture. The Safer Community Pass might seem easy, innocent, convenient, and the information safe, but it's a dangerous precedent. It's the tip of the spear to usher in constant surveillance. That's not the America I want to live in. You've got the rest of my speech. I've crossed an awful lot out here. I just want to end with why do the protected need to be protected from the unprotected by coercing the unprotected to get the protection that didn't protect the protected in the first place? There's not much difference between that having to show a newfangled phone app everywhere you go and this yellow star from 80 years ago. I had to show a medical mask exemption everywhere I went for 9 months in the Omaha area, and I felt like I had this on. The ordinance has dropped, and I'm glad to say that it has, but I got a taste of what it feels like to be treated like dirt and a second-class citizen and refused entrance into buildings because I can't wear a mask. And that's just the beginning of all of this. I implore you to look at the big picture. If you have that brought into the state of Nebraska, it'll spread like a cancer. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Pat Beckham.
Thank you. Good morning. I would also like to protest the time limit. I took a day of vacation, spent hours during my busiest time of the season to prepare this, and now I've had to cut it down. I think you can feel the emotion in the room, and you as the Regents ought to be listening. So I am here today as a U.S. citizen, a Nebraska taxpayer, an alumni of UNL, and most importantly, as a parent of a student here at UNL who has been impacted by your choices. I have serious concerns about the policies you have implemented to try to manage the pandemic, including the requirement to wear a mask, using the tracking app that you've heard about to require entrance to a building, and requiring the weekly saliva testing for unvaccinated students. In general, these requirements are an invasion of privacy. They're spending unnecessary resources, and they're ineffective when you understand the basic science behind the transmission of the virus. So I have provided you my testimony and some slides from Mr. Stephen Petty, and I urge you to watch his videos. He is an industrial hygienist. He's an expert witness. Follow the science. If the university system can't follow the science, who does? And you heard that earlier. And I urge you, I don't have time to get into it now, but as an earlier speaker said, your masks are doing nothing because it's aerosol particles that are 500 times smaller than a speck of dust that carry the virus. I disagree with the use of the Safer Community app. It is an invasion of privacy. We are creating 2 tiers of citizens because if you're unvaccinated, you have to get the stupid weekly COVID test. And although you gave somebody an award this morning because it's so available, my son couldn't get a test at noon on a Friday, and he was panicky whether he was going to be able to go to class on Monday. This is madness. You guys, you have to do something. COVID-19 is not a high risk to young, healthy people. Based on the CDC data, the annual death rate for people 18 to 25 is 0.0045%. And for those of you who are not mathematical, that's less than 5 deaths per 100,000 people. All students don't fall in this range. If folks want to get the vaccine, wear a mask, That's fine, but there is no reason to mandate masks, and there's no reason to track our children on an app. It appears you are blindly following the CDC guidance for institutions of higher learning. While I wish we could rely on the CDC to follow the science and adjust that over time, it's clear we can't. They have become entwined in the politics of the pandemic, and I would expect the university to independently analyze data, solicit input from experts, weigh the findings, and arrive at your own decisions on how best to manage the pandemic. How can we expect students here to learn critical thinking if the leadership can't, or more importantly, won't demonstrate that? I hope that you will do some research and consider making some changes. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Amy Southwick.
Thank you. You all have a copy because I'm going to run out of time as well. I'm here to ask you to please discontinue the community or the Safer Community app. I have 2 children at UNL, and I'm going to share with you 4 examples of why it's flawed and it's actually punishing and taking away educational opportunities that I'm paying for. The first one is my son returned to campus January of 2021. He did his 2 tests, didn't realize that there was a 3rd test, did his 3rd test at the last possible minute, which was a Friday, then was randomly picked on Monday to test again. So he tested, his first 3 were positive, 2 days later tested, came back, the first 3 were negative, then he has to test 2 days later, it came back positive. He said, how can it be positive? I have no symptoms, no nothing. Disagreed with it, said I'm gonna get tested again, which he was advised against, did it anyway on Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday afternoon, it was negative. So he said, can I please go back to class? He was informed, no. The case manager said, your positive was clearly a positive because we don't make mistakes, and between Monday and Wednesday, your body must have fought it off, and so you're through the infection. He said, so then I can return to class. And they said, no, our policy is with any positive, you're out for 14 days. So he did not have any symptoms, was not spreading, but could not return to class. My daughter in July of 2021 had COVID. I brought her up to the university so she could be tested so you guys would have it documented and recorded. Her community app gains her access, but the communication you guys have, it doesn't communicate to the College of Education. So her advisor calls her and says, Sydney, you're not doing your testing. She says, I'm exempt because I have a 90-day grace period. That's not communicated, so she has to get an email to show she is in fact not in violation of not testing. Her boyfriend had the same situation, had COVID 2020 or July of 2021, came to the university, got tested, is documented, but your IT cannot get it to go onto his community app, so now his exemption for testing every week is gone. Now, I spoke with some concerns in January to you, and I was very pleased that Dr. Gold actually called me because he thought my kids were at Omaha. They weren't, they were at Lincoln. But we had a conversation about COVID, and in February of 2021, Dr. Gold admitted to me they knew at UNMC that when you've had a natural infection, that your body does indeed go into the long-lasting immunity, and compared it to measles, mumps, and rubella. If you've had measles, mumps, rubella naturally, you have lifetime immunity. Which brings me to my 4th example. A friend of mine's son tested positive September of 2020, went home, was symptomatic, lost taste and smell, indeed had COVID. Because he has to test every single week now, September 2021, he had a positive test. Guess what? The way the body works, he might have had the virus, but his body was fighting it off, so he was not going to spread it, and he was not going to be symptomatic. And yet he was pulled out of classes for 14 days. We are paying good money for this education, and because you're following flawed policies, you're depriving children that need to be in classrooms out of it. As people have mentioned, the CDC and Dr. Fauci will say, if you're vaccinated, you can get it, you can spread it. What scares me is you're not testing them. And if you can get it, you might have lesser symptoms, but your viral load, according to the CDC, is just as high. So it makes you more of a threat to this campus. So again, we are discriminating against those with natural immunity. We are discriminating against those that have the autonomy of their body to say, I'm going to take the risk. I'm a healthy person. I'd rather go with natural immunity. I'd rather beg my chances.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I urge you to please finish reading, because the other thing I have in here is your policies should follow your true numbers, which should be your reproductive numbers. And that is how you determine how much a virus will spread. And just so you know, the state of Nebraska right now is a 1.0, which is a plateau. The entire United States is at a 0.96, which is declining. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. David Reiser.
All right, thank you for allowing me to speak to this board. My name is David Reiser. I'm not aware of any plan to implement such a mandate by this university. But for the record, I do realize there are pressures from the White House, CDC, FDA, NIH, I could go on, and media, all of whom are hell-bent on us getting each and every one of us vaccinated. And of course, our students, our children, it doesn't stop there. I think if they could, if you're in the womb, they'd like to inject. I am so opposed to these vaccines. They are not safe. And when I hear safe and effective, this goes against science, this goes against data. If you look at VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, a nice user-friendly interface can be found at medalerts.org, that's .org. The deaths now, as reported to that system as of September 24th, is 15,937. Serious adverse events, including myocarditis, Bell's palsy, Guillain-Barré, seizures, stroke, bleeding, 105,000. This is outrageous to suggest that these vaccines are safe. As by comparison, influenza vaccines, we roughly vaccinate, about 150,000, and nearly the same number with influenza vaccines in this country. I looked up the data. In 2020, there were only 40 deaths. So that might be the definition of a safe vaccine. I know time is limited, so I want to jump to another name that we've already mentioned, Peter McCullough, and he's excellent. You can learn a lot from him. He'll be here on campus. I also recommend go listening to him. Richard Fleming is another great one. FlemingMethod.com posts a lot of data on his website, a lot of statistics, a lot of studies that have been done, well-versed in speaking out on COVID. Finally, I want to end with a little story here, how we could be enjoying a completely different reality in this country. Let's take India, for example. I've been watching this for months now. India, a country of 1.3 billion people, somehow, according to Worldometers, only has 450,000 deaths related to COVID. Last I checked, they're a third world country. We're a first world country. We've got 730,000 deaths. How can this be? If you do the math, India should have at least that same ratio as the US. That would put them at 2.8 million deaths. So the question is, how does a third world country beat the United States of America, where we have the best healthcare, we have the best doctors, don't we? Well, one little thing that they've done in Uttar Pradesh, I think they had about 300,000 cases earlier this year through May and June, and everyone who tested positive all received a health kit. Contained vitamins, C, D, and zinc, doxycycline, and oh yes, a horse medicine, ivermectin. No, this is not a horse medicine. This is a proven medicine that does work on humans. It was developed.
Please move to conclude.
Received a Nobel Prize in 2015 for curing river blindness. It is safe, it is effective, as many other therapeutic medicines are. And I just hope that this board, in conclusion, does not participate in any of this, I'll call it COVID vaccine mandate tyranny. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Jennifer Grabber.
Good morning. It's actually Graber. I also would like to protest the cutting back of the time again. I think like everyone that's spoken, I spent some time putting this together. So I'm going to wing it. Here we go. A lot of really pertinent topics have been brought up today. And what I really want to focus on is personal freedom. Okay, we have a constitution in this country. We have a constitution in this state. That gives us personal freedom. Freedom to, for example, wear the items that we choose to wear, you know, like a mask, or what we choose to inject in our body, like a vaccine. These vaccines are not without risk. This is a personal decision. It's a personal freedom issue. And that, in my opinion, is the most important thing here. As the regents of the university, and I'm an alumni of the university, I have 2 degrees from the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. And you know, what's amazing to me is this vaccine actually strikes me as a good opportunity to teach these college students critical thinking skills. Okay? Gather the facts, do the research, look at the risk versus reward, and then you decide what's best for you. Not someone from above telling you that you have to take a vaccine or put something in your body that you don't want to put in your body for whatever reason. Okay? The second piece I would like to mention is around the contact tracing app. Again, this is a personal freedom issue. We're not China, last time I checked, or at least not yet. Surveilling students goes too far, in my opinion. And again, it's a privacy violation. You're also expecting them to submit to unwanted medical procedures by making them test for COVID on a weekly basis and then share those medical results, a violation of personal health information. So to me, this tracing app doesn't sound much different than the yellow star, as the lady mentioned earlier. You're separating people into 2 sets of citizens and 2 sets of communities. To me, it's a very slippery slope you're on. So it's a risk to public health. So I'm just curious, what's next? Are you gonna start tracking your students that are having sex with lots of different partners? Because that's a risk, right? Are you gonna start tracking people that smoke? I mean, where does it end? It's a slippery slope, and I would ask that you please consider removing this app to the point earlier, give these students their freedom back, and let them live and learn how to critically think. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Abigail Ritter.
Good morning. You've seen me here before, and you're probably going to see me here again, unfortunately. I'm here once again to urge you to divest the university's funds from fossil fuel companies. Let me be clear when I say this. We want full divestment. This is what your students want and what we have demanded for almost 2 years now. After the destruction that fossil fuels have caused and their continued attempts to slow climate mitigation, they have proven time and time again that they put profit over people. The fossil fuel industry and their execs like to find a way to manipulate things in their favor. For them, ESG policies are a major win and that they can still get money out of it. Oil companies can work with ESG policies by setting non-concrete sustainability goals that they themselves know are unobtainable. They can make fake promises and manipulate the way you think about the importance of ethical investments, because in the end, they know they won't be profitable without oil. The idea of divesting from only companies that aren't committed to sustainability seems like the perfect compromise. But isn't that what divesting from CU 200 companies is doing? These are the companies that knew about the link between CO2 and the greenhouse effect before it was making global headlines, yet they made no substantial attempts to reduce their emissions. It is not easy to get on the selective list of emitters, but these companies found a way to the top in the name of a profit. We are grateful for the ESG policy, but it isn't enough. Saying we may reach divestment eventually is not a commitment to divestment. We are not the first student body to ask this of their university, and like Minnesota, Rutgers, and Harvard, we will be here until the university commits to a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Ruth Snyder.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Schneider. I do want to protest the time limit. I prepared for 2 minutes and 55 seconds, so I will talk fast. I am here to speak this morning about the Safer Community app. For over 200 years, our Constitution has protected our freedom, and it is for the freedom of our kids that I am here today. My husband's entire family has gone here. Going way back, my husband's grandma, she was the house mother for 2 fraternities. My father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, 2 nephews, and my husband all graduated from Lincoln. Our families paid thousands of dollars and lots in textbooks, and we've been longtime donors of the university. So given my family's long track record at UNL, my son decided to attend college here, partly because he loves Nebraska and partly because Nebraska was not mandating COVID vaccines. I'm not here to debate whether you should or should not get the vaccine, but I do not support the vaccine mandates, and I'm opposed to the Safer Communities app because it violates the freedom of the students and the faculty. As a parent, a taxpayer, and a donor, I'm appalled that we're tracking students and faculty and allowing or denying them access to buildings based on their private health status. A few weeks ago, my son had not received his COVID test results back before the color code on his app had changed, and he was denied getting into the cafeteria for a dinner that I'd already paid for, and he has natural antibodies. As an American, we have a constitutional freedom to move around as we please, freedom to assemble as we please, and the right to be secure in our information against unreasonable searches and seizures. This Safe Community app is serving as a vaccine passport and is restricting people's movements, their right to peacefully assemble in the classroom or dining hall, and it's based on private health information that has been unreasonably obtained by the university. This is completely wrong. It's totally un-American. It's not supported by our Constitution. This is an overreach of power by this body of elected officials, and it's going down a dangerous path of totalitarianism. As elected officials, it is your job to make decisions that uphold the Constitution. The Safer Community app is a violation of the Constitution and the rights of the students and the faculty. It must be stopped in order to protect our freedoms. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ruth. And I would apologize on behalf of the board of the miscommunication on the time limit. The standing rules further provide that anyone desiring to speak concerning any item on the agenda for this meeting, regardless of notice, may do so. Each person wishing to do so will be given up to 2 minutes to make their remarks. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on an item on today's agenda? Being no other persons wishing to comment, I declare the opportunity for public comment closed. It is now time to consider the consent agenda. The consent agenda is indicated by its name. It is moved and voted on as a group of items, as opposed to the administrative agenda where items are considered and discussed individually. With that being said, unless one of my colleagues on the board wishes to consider any of these items on the administrative agenda, I would invite a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Barb. Second by Tim. Roll call vote, please.
Regent Limbach? Yes. Regent Hemmer?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kinney?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I would now ask President Carter to guide us through the administrative agenda.
Under Academic Affairs, approval is requested to establish the University of Nebraska Undergraduate Transfer Student Graduation Guarantee and Returning Student Degree Completion Guarantee, which outlines student and campus obligations designed to ensure students can graduate in a timely fashion. The university guarantees that undergraduate students will be able to enroll in courses that permit graduation consistent with an agreed-upon academic plan of study and timetable developed with their academic advisor. If specific coursework enrollments are not available, the university will work with the student to offer approved alternatives or substitutions that will fit into the agreed-upon timetable for graduation. If a student fulfills all the requirements outlined in the applicable guarantee and is not able to graduate according to the agreed-upon program of study time frame, the university will cover 100% of tuition for any additional course or courses needed to graduate. This proposal has been reviewed by the Academic Affairs Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
So moved. Second.
See who is the, And second, Tim? Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Oh, you have a comment?
I was just going to make the comment that in academic affairs, we talked about this and just enthusiastically are enthusiastic about this. The fact that there are a number of students that are going to the community colleges or going to other institutions and or maybe had classes and hadn't completed their degree, the fact that we're making efforts to try to bring them back to the university and get them educated so that they can transform their lives and the lives of their families, I think is extraordinarily important. So I am very enthusiastically in favor of this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Regent Hemmer?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 11A2, approval is requested to create an undergraduate certificate in Spanish for the helping professions at UNK. Students completing the required coursework will gain Spanish language competency designed to help meet a critical need for social workers in Nebraska with special training and working with Spanish-speaking populations. This proposal has been reviewed by the Academic Affairs Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Thank you, President. Is there a motion to approve 11A2?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion?
I could quickly just say something about this. Thank you, Chairman Kenny. I do want to highlight the opportunity that this kind of gives to the university. Obviously, this is a huge win for, I think, two reasons. A, the language barrier is a huge problem in social work, and I'm sure Dr. Malchik can attest to that. So this is a great step in the right direction there. But B, I think this opens a lot of doors down the road for similar certificates in other professions. The language barrier is obviously a huge problem in healthcare as well, and I think that could be said about any profession here in Nebraska specifically. So I would really like to see this kind of cause a domino effect and make a lot of great changes at the university. I think it's a great step in the right direction.
Anyone else? Bill?
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hemmer? Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 11A3, approval is requested to create an undergraduate certificate in perioperative nursing at UNMC. Perioperative nursing is a term used to include preoperative care, the actual time in the operating room, and the time patients spend in post-anesthesia recovery. Most nursing pre-licensure programs offer very limited, if any, exposure to highly specialized perioperative nursing within their curricula. This program will help address shortages of nurses in this subfield. This proposal has been reviewed by the Academic Affairs Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve 11A3?
So moved.
Or second? Any further discussions on 11A3? Seeing none. Phil?
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hemmer? Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 11A4, approval is requested to create a Master of Science in Medical Physiology at UNMC. The proposed degree is designed to meet the needs of students seeking adjunct teaching positions in physiology, those seeking improved employment and earning opportunities in basic science and/or clinical research laboratories, and those wishing to improve their competitiveness for admission into a physiology PhD program or health professions school. This proposal has been reviewed by the Academic Affairs Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
President, is there a motion to approve 11A4?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Chairman Kenny, if I may, just briefly, I think this is key for a lot of health profession students throughout
the state of Nebraska. Before going to med school, I actually completed a Master's of Medical Anatomy program, which has a very similar spirit to this, and that's what actually allowed me to gain entry to medical school. This is unique in that it's an online program, so it not only helps serve Nebraskans who want to pursue health professions education, but it also increased our footprint nationally. I think it's a win-win, and I'm very excited for it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hammer? Yes. Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Under Business and Finance, item 11B1. Item 11B1 seeks your approval of the program statement and budget for the Calvin T. Ryan Library renovation at UNK. The Ryan Library renovation represents one of our first projects funded from our LB 384 Deferred Maintenance Partnership with the state. This project will replace aging systems and restore the nearly 60-year-old facility through upgrades to lighting, flooring, ceiling, IT infrastructure, and building systems. We also intend to increase energy efficiency. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
President, is there a motion to approve B2?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions on the renovations?
Chairman, I think it's worthy of a comment that Business and Finance Committee spent energy on this and appreciative of the work of Chancellor Christensen's team from all considerations for the library, and that this would be a piece of the legislation and use of funds that's been more than past due. And maybe I can't remember the number, but with this bill, President Carter, and with the funding that we're doing over the 30-year period, we're going to save the Nebraska taxpayers is about $1.5 billion.
That's correct.
So, that's a big deal, and this is more than past due. So I'm really excited about it for you and Kid.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? And I misspoke too. It's B1, not B2. So, any other comments?
Regent Hammer?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B2 seeks your approval to acquire the improvements at 2900 West 24th Street in Kearney. This property is a large commercial structure formerly used as an office and warehouse building. If approved, UNK intends to use this space to consolidate facilities operations into a single unified location. The unification will save operational expenses and provide a safer site for trucks making deliveries and for the storage and maintenance of equipment. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
So I'd like to make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Tim?
Second.
Any discussions on this property? Doug?
Thank you, Chairman Kenny. This is the old Kmart building. And so what this will do is allow us to purchase the ground lease of which this property is on. We'll be able to make the improvements. It's a long-term lease, so instead of us building at a much higher cost, this will provide a long-term solution for us, under $1 million, and it has plenty of space. We'll renovate some of that, but it's crucially located off the campus, and we will be demolishing the existing facility that is just east of Discovery Hall. That for those of you who've been there, that eyesore that was just directly east of Discovery Hall will be leaving us, and this is a much more functional and cost-effective way of housing our equipment.
Thank you, Chancellor. Anyone have comments?
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach? Regent Hammer? Regent Kenny? Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen? Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
And Regent Claire?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I recommend considering items 11B3 and 11B4 together. Both items are made possible by our LB 384 deferred maintenance funding. These projects will make critical upgrades to infrastructure and building systems at UNMC. Air handlers and hot water infrastructure aren't flashy projects, but they are important to our day-to-day operations on campus. And after 45-plus years, a renewal is needed. These items were reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend them to you for your approval.
Thank you, President. Unless there's an objection, we'll have both 3 and 4 together in your motion. Someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion been made in second. Any comments?
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hammer?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Claire?
Yes.
Regent Kenny? Yes. The motion passes.
Item 11B5 seeks your approval to acquire 2 properties and dispose of 1 property, all in support of the UNMC Campus Master Plan. These proposed real estate actions would be accomplished through a property exchange with the Child Savings Institute Foundation. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
President, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion been made in second. Any comments on this acquisition?
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hammer?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Claire?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B6 seeks your approval for a revenue contract between the UNMC Monroe-Meyer Institute and Omaha Public Schools to provide occupational and physical therapy services this academic year with annual options through the 2024-2025 school year. This represents a good partnership opportunity for our talented faculty and staff to help OPS with these critical services. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Would entertain a motion to approve B6.
So moved.
Second. Motion been made in second. Any discussion?
I have a question. I got a little bit confused about, the contract line seemed to start at, Department of Education. I didn't see where our funding came into play there. With the services, are we being paid for our services, or are we in a contract to provide all services?
Chancellor Gold.
Thank you, Regent Whites. This is a renewal. This is not technically a renewal, but it's a furtherance of services that the Monroe-Meyer Institute has provided to the Omaha Public Schools. They will be paying us to provide this service. So it is essentially a professional services agreement to serve those with developmental and intellectual disabilities. It is up to a 5-year contract, which is why it is being brought to the attention of the board for your review and consideration.
This has been going on for years because there's such a shortage in the OPS.
Right.
So
I was just puzzled by where the Department of Education came into play.
just a funding loop.
That's okay.
Any other comments?
Regent Hammer?
Yes.
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Claire?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B7 seeks your approval of the revised program statement for the Durham Science Center renovation at UNO. This project was previously presented to the Board of Regents. However, the deferred maintenance support through LB 384 will allow for the full scope of renovations to be completed, including improved space for classrooms, labs, and study spaces. building envelope and code updates, and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and technology system updates. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
President Carter, is there a motion to approve B7?
So moved.
Jim, second by Steve. Any discussions? Bill? Oh, wait, Jim, excuse me.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for everybody to recognize that this isn't a change of scope from the original program statement, but because of the legislation, these were also projects that were really, really direly needed, but weren't a part of the original program statement because there weren't some funding to do. So now with the funding, much needed work can be completed, so that can be the facility it needs to be.
Regent? Anyone else?
Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hemmer? Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 11B8 seeks your approval to enter into an interlocal agreement with the City of Omaha to grant UNO Public Safety sworn law enforcement officers the right and ability to enforce the laws of the City of Omaha through citation or arrest based on violations of the Omaha Municipal Code. This item represents Chief Evans' good work to continue developing our capacity in public safety for UNO and UNMC. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Barb, second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have another question.
Sure.
What about our other cities? Like Lincoln Police have the same kind of agreement, or Kearney Police, or Ed Center?
Ronnie, you want to address that?
Yes, but Lincoln, we have our own freestanding UNO Police Department, but we also have an interlocal agreement with cooperation with the Lincoln Police Department.
We also have an interlocal agreement with them.
Okay, so this is in line with the other campuses?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hemmer? Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B9 seeks your approval to amend the university rights agreement between UNO and Learfield. The COVID-19 pandemic and resulting restrictions on large gatherings, including sporting events, had a significant impact on intercollegiate athletics. Restrictions affected the game inventory and merchandising opportunities UNO Athletics was able to provide. These reductions, as well as the general economic environment during the pandemic, had a negative impact on revenue associated with media rights, sponsorships, and merchandising. In recognition of these impacts, UNO Athletics and Learfield are proposing an agreement to reduce the guaranteed rights fee from $1.5 million to $1.05 million for contract year 2020-2021. In the event COVID-19 continues to negatively impact inventory and the resulting revenues in contract year 21-22, the parties propose a reduction in the guaranteed rights fee equal to 50% of the amount in which the adjusted gross revenue in contract year 2019-20 exceeded the adjusted gross revenue in contract year 2021 and 22. Provided, however, if the shortfall is greater than $300,000, the parties will negotiate a mutually agreeable reduction. In short, this represents a good faith effort by both parties to reach a compromise based on the financial challenges presented by a global pandemic. This item has been reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Thank you, President. Would someone like to make a motion on 11B9?
So moved. Second.
Motion been made in second. Any comments? Chancellor, would you like to make a comment on this one?
I believe this is a win-win situation to resolve economic impacted by the COVID-19. And I do support the fact that we give some room for a mutually agreeable term in the future.
Anyone else? Bill?
Regent Limbach?
Yes.
Regent Hemmer? Regent Ibrahim?
Yes.
Regent Cradaville?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Claire?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent Ferris?
Yes.
Regent Pillen?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
The motion passes.
That brings that to an end. We have numerous reports to take a peek at.
There are numerous reports for your review.
I accept the reports listed on the agenda on behalf of the board. Seeing no further business, is there objection? We would stand adjourned. Seeing none?